Hi everyone, this is actually my second time doing this video because the first time I did it, it just disappeared. So hopefully this time this video will not disappear and that it'll be available for everyone to see. But today I want you to become an expert at fat and its importance and weight loss, because for the past 50 years the narrative has been, if you want to lose weight, you got to decrease your fat and make sure you have no cholesterol, because cholesterol causes heart disease, which is simply not true. All of those claims were based on really bad science that was done in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I'm going to be talking about that science towards the end of this video if you are interested, but let's get into the nitty-gritty of what happens in your body when you eat fat. I've also taken some notes so I don't go off track, okay? Alrighty guys, first off, fat does not make you fat. It's everything that happens around fat that can cause issues. Now, rule number one, fat doesn't make you fat. Sugar makes you fat. Carbs make you fat. Insulin spikes makes you fat, all right? This is really important because when you're looking at your meal plan and you're looking at those macros on, I think, the second or third page, and you're seeing that 50% of your calories is coming from fat, this is not a bad thing, because fat is extremely healing. You need fat in every single cell. Fat delivers fat-soluble vitamins to every single cell that needs healing and repair. And not only that, but you need fat to kind of cushion your cells, to make them very flexible. So you also need cholesterol for hormone synthesis. So if you know anyone that has hormone issues, they need to decrease their carbs and increase their fat intake. So eating high cholesterol foods, lots of saturated fats, is going to help them tremendously. If they have inflammation, decreasing their carb intake, increasing their fat intake is going to help with their inflammation tremendously. So rule number one, fat doesn't make you fat, sugar makes you fat. Here is the mechanism as to why. So I need to kind of sit in and get comfortable because it's a really long explanation. So what happens when you eat carbs? What happens when you eat sugar? What happens when you eat anything that spikes your insulin? When insulin starts spiking, it switches off an enzyme called HSL. HSL stands for human hormone sensitive lipase. What HSL does is it tells your body to utilize fat for energy. So when you increase your insulin by eating sugar, by eating carbs, by eating starchy food, that HSL shuts down and you stop using fat for energy. So because your body now needs to use all of that sugar that you're eating. So it switches off mechanisms. So not only that, but when you increase your insulin and you increase your blood sugar over a long period of time, like say for instance on a standard American diet, like the majority of us, we start hitting metabolic issues. And what I mean by that is when the USDA says that 10% of our calorie intake should come from added sugar. That then means that it's about 40 to 50 grams of sugar a day. Now, you and me as adult women should only do about 24 grams. So that's more like 5%. So everyone is being told to max out their insulin on their body, and they're saying that that's healthy and that's according to guidelines. That's simply not true. So the majority of us are already exacerbating our spikes in insulin. We're producing way too much insulin to try and get all of that sugar that we're eating that is now swimming in our bloodstream into our cells. When that happens, when we're eating a ton of sugar, more than is recommended, day in and day out, what your cells do to that insulin, because the insulin is kind of like a lock and key, right? Insulin unlocks the cell, and then sugar can go into the cell. So it exits the bloodstream and goes into the cell. And when it goes into the cell, it is then utilized to produce energy. What happens when the cells are constantly bombarded by insulin day in and day out, over and over and over, is that cell becomes desensitized to insulin. And it's almost like it covers its ears and says, no more, I'm not listening, and it shuts down. And so now insulin is turning, but that lock is not, that door is not opening. So what happens to all of that sugar that is floating around in your blood? Because it has to go somewhere. Well, it causes inflammation, and then your liver has to process it into fat because it has to go somewhere. It's not being utilized for energy. So it's wreaking havoc, it's causing oxidative stress, and then it's stored as fat stores. So what's really the bad guy here? Is it the insulin and the sugar, or is it the fat? Because remember, fat heals, fat repairs, fat delivers healing molecules. Insulin and sugar does not. Insulin and sugar tells you, I need to produce energy to function. The majority of us are already eating too many calories. So that's what I wanted to express to you guys today. So it's not the fat, it's the combination. So what happens if you eat a really high fat diet and you're not eating anything else? Well, that can actually also cause problems like inflammation. So it's what you combine with fat. If you eat a high fat diet with lots of vegetables, that's going to create a healing response, and your body's going to utilize that, and you're going to utilize fat as energy, and your body's going to heal and repair and help decrease inflammation. If you eat fat with sugar, then your body is going to store fat. It's going to, actually it's not going to store fat, it's just going to shut down your body's ability to utilize that fat. And then with that insulin spike, it's going to take all that sugar and it's going to convert it to fat. So it's not the fat's fault, it's the insulin's fault, because that insulin created a chain reaction. There are a few more things I wanted to mention, and I think I got all of them. Also, there is one other thing too. You will see with all my menus, I do include the amount of calories that you're eating, because too many calories for anything will always be stored as fat. So I try to keep the calories within a standard women's diet, all right? So it doesn't make any sense to go and eat a 5,000 calorie diet on fat and vegetables. Even though that might be good and would be way better than a 2,000 calorie diet on like pizza and ice cream. You will lose more fat on the 5,000 calorie diet than you will on the 2,000 calorie diet. But I do want to point that out, that it's the association, like what are you combining with that fat? So let's talk about desserts real fast, because all they are is sugar, carbs, and fat. So sugar and carbs spike insulin, and then fat is inhibited to be used as energy. Not only that, but it's a lot of calories, and so that's being stored as fat. All right. Think of other things like pizza. Pizza has lots of carbs, so it's turned into sugar, and it has a lot of fat. All right. Let's think of cookies. Lots of carbs, lots of sugar, lots of fat. Basically, all of our favorite fast food things like fries or anything like that will create this issue. All right. So hopefully that is making sense so far. That's kind of Fat 101 in a nutshell. So remember, sugar plus fat equals inflammation and weight gain. Fat plus vegetables equals healing, repair, and growth. All right. Fat does not make you fat. Fat heals you. When you eat something else that blocks your body's ability to utilize that energy, that's when you start to put on weight. But it's not because the fat was present. It's because the glucose is now being stored as fat. And then last but not least, I did say I was going to talk about the bad research that has led us to this understanding of fat, okay? So back in the 60s and 70s, there was a scientist who took a lot of epidemiological studies on, I think, like 30-something countries. And he was looking at their heart disease rates and what they were eating. And he cherry-picked countries, I think it was like 6 countries that he picked, that had the highest rate of atherosclerosis and heart disease. And so he used those and he said, look, fats are causing these people to have heart disease. So he completely swayed the science to put forth an agenda and a narrative. So what did scientists do? They started testing this hypothesis of maybe fat is causing heart disease. So they did a study, and I think it was of like 12,000 men over like 11 or 12 years. And they split the control group and the test group, right? And so the test group was told to eat a low fat diet, and they took some kind of medication. Whereas the control group were told to do nothing, and they took a placebo. And over that span of 10 or 12 years, in our test subject group, there were 68 deaths. In our control group that were told to not change anything, there were 72. So what did scientists do? They ran. They said, look, people in our control group were dying more than our test group. So obviously this hypothesis stands. Now remember, it was there was a 3 death difference between thousands and thousands of men. But the media exploded with this, and then they came out with statins to promote this. And then the food industry took off with this, and they made low fat this and low fat that. And the sugar industry loved that, because then they could pump tons and tons of sugar in all of these foods to make up for the blandness of low fat foods. And that is how we created this culture of fat is bad, and fat makes you put on weight, and fat leads to heart disease. When in fact, unfortunately, cholesterol has been demonized, because where we see inflammation, we see cholesterol. And so we think cholesterol is the bad guy. Meanwhile, cholesterol is there trying to heal up everything and deliver fat-soluble vitamins to that area so that it can heal and repair. So cholesterol is not the bad guy. We have been shooting the messenger for decades, and that needs to stop. So I hope when you guys see your food diaries and you see the amount of fat that we put in there, that we leave in there, saturated fats and unsaturated fats, they are fantastic for you. They really help heal and repair. So don't shy away from fat. If you are concerned about weight loss, and I don't want that to be your number one goal. I want your number one goal to be healing your body. And so your body is going to heal hormones first before it tries to lose weight, because you can't work against hormones, right? So when you are trying to heal your body, it's going to heal the hormones first. But if you are concerned about weight loss, look at your meal plans and look for carbs that are in there, and you can decrease those carbs if you like. So things like oatmeal or the quinoa, or sometimes I will put in there like sweet potatoes. You can decrease your intake of those and increase your fat. So make up for those calories with fat, because fat is very satiating. Hopefully that was some good tips for you guys. I hope you feel like an expert in fat now, and that it doesn't scare you, and that you welcome it in your nutrition plans when you see it there. Good luck, guys.